If you have lost a spouse and you are 60 or older, there's a question you may never have thought to ask Social Security. And that question alone could mean the difference between hundreds of dollars a month and thousands of dollars a year for the rest of your life. This is not a trick. This is not a complicated loophole. It is a rule that is already written into the system, already attached to your record, and already waiting for you to claim it. The problem is that Social Security is not required to explain it to you unless you know to ask, and most people never ask. Most people walk out of that office or hang up after that phone call without ever knowing that a second, larger benefit may be sitting right there in the system, available and completely unclaimed. This video is for widows and widowers 60 and older, and for the family members and close friends who care about them. What you are about to hear is not common knowledge. It is something most people only discover years too late, if they discover it at all. There are specific claiming strategies built directly into Social Security survivor benefits that can put significantly more money in your pocket every single month. Some of these strategies involve permanent decisions. Once you make them, you cannot go back and undo them. And that is exactly why you need to understand them before you sign anything, before you file anything, and before you assume that the number someone quotes you on the phone is the only option available to you. I went through the official Social Security guidelines, the published survivor benefit rules, and the claiming strategies that benefits advocates and financial counselors use to help surviving spouses navigate these decisions correctly. I translated all of it into plain language here because the rules are not simple, and the consequences of a wrong choice are long-lasting. So stay with me through the end, because the last point in this video is the one that catches the most careful, well-prepared people off guard, and it may apply directly to your situation right now. Before I continue, if you have not subscribed yet, please do that now. The rules around Social Security, Medicare, and retirement income change every single year. Benefit thresholds adjust, claiming windows shift, survivor rules get updated in ways that most people never hear about. Subscribers find out before a deadline passes or a mistake becomes permanent. It takes 2 seconds, and it could be worth a great deal more than that. Now, let us get into it. The first thing to understand, and this is the foundation of everything else in this video, is that survivor benefits and your own retirement benefit are two completely separate benefits. Most people know that a surviving spouse can collect based on a deceased partner's work record. What most people do not know is that in many situations you can claim one of those benefits first, let the other one continue to grow, and then switch later when it is worth more. This is sometimes called a dual benefit strategy, and it is fully legal, fully official, and described in Social Security's own publications. What Social Security does not do is call you to explain it. There is no letter that arrives after a loss that says, before you file, you should know that you may have options. The options are simply there, quiet and available only to people who know to look. Here is how this plays out in a real situation. Imagine a widow who is 62 years old when her husband passes. She has not yet claimed any of her own Social Security retirement benefits. Her own retirement benefit, if she waits until she is older, will be worth significantly more than it would be at 62. But her husband had a strong work record, and she qualifies for survivor benefits based on his earnings. One path she might take is to claim the survivor benefit now, receive that income in the near term, and allow her own retirement benefit to keep growing. Then, at a later age, she switches to her own benefit once it has reached its higher value. Or she might do the opposite. If her own retirement benefit is already strong, she might claim it first and delay the survivor benefit. The order depends on the specific numbers attached to her record and her husband's record. The point is that both paths exist, but neither path presents itself to you automatically. You have to ask for the comparison. You have to specifically say to the representative, "Can you show me what both benefits look like at different ages?" That one question is often the only thing standing between a surviving spouse and a significantly better financial outcome. The second thing to know is how age affects the size of your survivor benefit, because this is where a great deal of money gets quietly lost. Survivor benefits are not the same amount at every age. The earlier you claim, the smaller the monthly check will be. If you begin collecting survivor benefits before your full retirement age, which, depending on your birth year, falls somewhere between 66 and 67, your benefit is reduced. And the word permanently is the one that matters most in that sentence. If you lock in a reduced survivor benefit at 60, and that reduction could have been avoided, you cannot reverse it later. That lower number follows you in every monthly deposit for the rest of your life. What this means in real terms is significant. If the full survivor benefit you are entitled to would be $1,500 each month, and you claim it early and it is reduced, you might receive closer to $1,100 or $1,200 a month instead. Over 10 years, that difference is tens of thousands of dollars. Over 20 years, the gap becomes large enough to change your entire financial picture. The reduction is not a punishment. It is simply the rule. But here is the part that trips people up constantly. The survivor benefit reduction schedule is calculated differently than the reduction schedule for regular retirement benefits. They are not the same formula. So general advice that a friend gives you, or a number based on how retirement benefits work, may not apply accurately to a survivor benefit. This is one of those situations where calling Social Security directly, asking for your specific numbers, and asking what the reduction looks like at each age is not optional. It is essential. A lot of people see a smaller amount and assume that is just how it is. In many cases, a different timing decision would have produced a very different outcome. Now, the third area is one that surprises people, and it involves what happens if you are still working. Social Security has what is called an earnings test. If you are collecting benefits and you are below your full retirement age, and you earn more than a certain amount from employment, Social Security can temporarily withhold a portion of your monthly benefit. That threshold adjusts from year to year, but the concept stays the same. What many surviving spouses do not realize is that the earnings test applies to survivor benefits the same way it applies to retirement benefits. If you are 62, working part-time or full-time, and you begin collecting survivor benefits, your income from work may reduce the amount you actually receive each month. A lot of people discover this only after their first payment arrives and is lower than expected. They did not realize that the earnings they reported would affect the check. This is not a permanent penalty. The money that is withheld is not gone forever. Once you reach full retirement age, the withholding stops and your monthly amount is recalculated upward to account for what was held back. But the timing matters. Understanding when and how the earnings test applies to your specific situation can change whether starting survivor benefits now makes sense, or whether waiting until you stop working produces a better result over time. The agency does not run that analysis and present it to you. You have to know to ask. The fourth point is where careful, thoughtful, responsible people still make an expensive and permanent mistake. It involves remarriage. Many widows and widowers assume that if they marry again, they lose their survivor benefit entirely. This belief stops people from ever asking about survivor benefits at all. They assume the situation is closed. But the rule is more specific than most people realize. If you remarry after the age of 60, you generally do not lose your right to the survivor benefit from your previous marriage. The benefit does not disappear. In most cases, you may still be able to collect it, even while you are in a new marriage. If you remarried before 60, the rules are different, and your specific situation would need to be reviewed separately. But if you are someone who lost a spouse, remarried after 60, and never asked about survivor benefits because you assumed you no longer qualified, there is a real chance you have been leaving money unclaimed for months or years. That is not something that happened because you did anything wrong. The assumption is completely understandable. The rule is just not explained clearly, and nobody sends a follow-up notice saying your remarriage does not automatically close this door. There is something else important within this same area that applies to divorced surviving spouses. If you were married to a former spouse for at least 10 years before that marriage ended in divorce, and that former spouse has since passed away, you may be eligible for survivor benefits based on their work record. This benefit is real. It exists inside the system. It generally requires that you not have remarried before 60, or that certain other conditions, depending on your circumstances, are met. But the point is that someone who was divorced decades ago, who assumed they had no remaining connection to a former spouse's Social Security record, and who never thought to ask, may actually have a survivor benefit claim they have never pursued. The money is not imaginary. It is already sitting in the system. It does not come looking for you. You have to know it is there, and you have to take one step to ask. The fifth point is the one almost nobody talks about, and it applies to more people than most realize. It involves a provision called the Disabled Widow or Widower Benefit. The general rule is that survivor benefits for a widow or widower begin at age 60, but this provision lowers that starting age to 50 for people who meet specific conditions. If you are at least 50 years old, if your marriage lasted at least 9 months, if your spouse worked long enough to be insured under Social Security, and if you developed a disability that meets Social Security's definition, either before your spouse passed or within a certain window of time afterward, you may be able to begin collecting survivor benefits a full decade earlier than the standard starting age. There is a waiting period of 5 months before payments can begin, but the option itself is available and it is real. This is not a small detail. For a widow or widower in their early or mid-50s who is dealing with a serious health condition and believed that survivor benefits were still years away, this provision can open a door that they had no idea existed. This is exactly the kind of thing that falls through the cracks. It is not something a Social Security intake representative typically volunteers during a grief-stricken visit or a rushed phone call. It is buried in the official rules, available to people who know to ask for it, and completely invisible to people who do not. If you or someone you know is between 50 and 60, has a qualifying disability, and lost a spouse, this is a conversation worth having with Social Security directly as soon as possible. One phone call can change everything. The rule exists for exactly this situation. There is one more thing that belongs in this conversation, and it applies no matter which of the situations above is yours. When you contact Social Security to discuss survivor benefits, you can ask them to show you a side-by-side comparison of your options. Ask for the projected amount of the survivor benefit at different ages. Ask for the projected amount of your own retirement benefit at different ages. Ask where the two amounts cross over, meaning the age at which delaying one and claiming the other produces the larger lifetime total. This comparison is available to you. It is not always offered without being requested, but it is the single most useful tool a surviving spouse can use before making any filing decision. Do not make a permanent choice based on one number that someone read you off a screen. Ask for both numbers. Ask what each looks like across different ages. Ask about the combined strategy. That is not an unusual request. It is a specific one. And being specific is exactly what you need to be when a decision this important is on the table. So here is the full picture. Widows and widowers have access to survivor benefits that are entirely separate from their own retirement benefit, and there is often a real strategy for which one to claim first and when. Claiming survivor benefits too early can permanently reduce the monthly amount you receive for the rest of your life. The earnings test can reduce your payment if you are still working, and understanding how it applies to your situation before you file is worth a direct conversation. Remarriage after 60 generally does not take away your survivor benefit, and a marriage of at least 10 years that ended in divorce may also give you a survivor claim you have never thought to pursue. The Disabled Widow or Widower provision can allow someone as young as 50 to begin collecting if the disability and other conditions are met. And a benefit comparison showing both your own retirement benefit and the survivor benefit at various ages is one of the most powerful tools available to you and something you can simply ask for. None of this comes looking for you. The system does not automatically review your options and present the most favorable one. Nobody sends a letter that says you may be leaving money on the table. The difference between collecting everything you are entitled to and leaving years of benefits unclaimed is knowing what to ask and taking one step. If this video helped you see something you did not see before, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. A widow, a widower, a friend who has recently lost a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a neighbor. And if you want to keep receiving information like this before rules change and deadlines quietly pass, please subscribe. You worked for these benefits. You paid into the system. Make sure you actually receive everything you have earned.